As Britain launches airstrikes against another Middle Eastern country, potentially escalating the conflict in the Middle East and triggering fresh waves of refugees into Europe, I have to ask, is our asylum system keeping us safe? Of course, the airstrikes were absolutely necessary. Iranian-backed Houthi Islamists have been attacking cargo ships in the Red Sea for weeks, and the final straw was launching drones against British Royal Navy warships. Here's a bit of advice. If you don't want to be bombed back to the Stone Age, don't attack the British military. It won't end well for you. However, I can't help but sense a flaw in our government's strategy of importing tens of thousands of people from countries in the Middle East while bombing those countries. 80,000 Yemenis now live in the UK. I'm not for a moment suggesting that genuine Yemeni refugees, many of whom are Christian, wish us harm. I'm sorry for what Islamic radicals have done to their country, and I'm glad Britain can offer a safe refuge. But we can't pretend that nobody in Yemen bears a grudge for these bombings. The Houthis do, for a start. And these attitudes may be more prevalent than we're told. Look at this protest against the US and UK in Yemen's capital today. No, my concern is with an asylum system that can easily be gamed to let the wrong people into our country. People say, well, most Yemenis hate the Houthis, and most of the Yemeni refugees in the UK are Christians who had to flee because of persecution. But people said the same thing about Libyans who hated the barbaric regime of Colonel Gaddafi. It didn't stop Libyan asylum seeker Kearse Sadala from killing 3 men and seriously injuring 3 other people in a Reading park. People said Syrians hated the barbaric regime of Bashar al-Assad, but it didn't stop Islamic extremist Imad al-Swalmin, who claimed to be a Christian fleeing persecution in Syria, from bombing a maternity hospital in Liverpool. Disaster was only averted when his bomb detonated prematurely. People said Iraqis hated the barbaric regime of Saddam Hussein, but it didn't stop extremist Iraqi asylum seeker Ahmad Hassan from attempting mass murder in the Parsons Green bombing. And across the Middle East and Africa, people sought refuge from persecution by ISIS, but it didn't stop Eritrean asylum seeker Mukhtar Said Ibrahim attempting mass murder as one of the failed London underground bombers. Of course, I'm not suggesting that every asylum seeker or Muslim hates the West or wants to harm us. That's ridiculous. The majority are good people in terrible situations when they're seeking asylum, and they need our help. I'm worried about terrorists exploiting our asylum system. In 2020, there were over 43,000 potential extremists in the UK on MI5 watch lists, reportedly 90% of whom were Islamic extremists. We clearly need to get better at screening who comes to live here. Will the airstrikes even stop attacks by the Houthis? Saudi Arabia has been bombing them for 8 years and they don't seem to have gone away. They're guerrilla fighters. When they're attacked, they can scatter, hide and then regroup. These strikes risk expanding a regional conflict. I personally think the West is powerful to stop the colonising spread of Houthi Islamists in Yemen. It's gone. It's too late to save it. It's never going to be a safe place for Christians or other religious minorities. But it's not too late to protect Britain. And to do that, we're going to have to reform our asylum system. People shouldn't be able to claim asylum by falsely pretending to be Christian or gay or trans or persecuted in some other way. Grown men shouldn't be able to pretend to be children. There shouldn't be an incentive for human rights lawyers to help people to lie to get access to this country. Charities and NGOs shouldn't be encouraging people to cheat the system. Our government and business leaders shouldn't be complicit in a fraudulent asylum system just because they want the short-term economic boost of cheap labour. And Rishi shouldn't clear the backlog by granting asylum to people en masse without any scrutiny. The slogan of the Houthis is, "God is the greatest, death to America, death to Israel, a curse upon the Jews, victory to Islam." This ideology can't be allowed to take root in the West. The soft underbelly of our civilization needs to be armoured because, as Yemen shows, Christian countries can fall. And if Britain falls, where would we claim asylum?